Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Polina here, talking to you a little bit about the equinox that is happening on the 23rd of September. It is now the 4th of September, and I have to explain this to you again. As I would. I do this habitually. So, talking about solstices and equinoxes is something very important for me. So, we have this incredible design in the sky. Okay, we have a very, very simple law. Okay, and we have a very, very simple way to understand what life is during these equinoxes and solstices. In a way, if you can imagine, the equinox marks the first half of the year. So if you remember me talking about this for years, the year doesn't belong or doesn't start in January. It actually starts usually traditionally on the 25th of March. I say the 21st, 22nd of March as we go from Pisces to Aries because Aries is the newborn, Pisces is death or like the last phase of life, or the embryonic stage, vice versa. So, in a sense, we don't really have it together unless we understand that. And this is something that I've been very critical of for ages, but people don't like. They don't like me for it. I get it. I get it. It's hard, Jingle bells at the new year. We don't want anything else. That's how it's done. That's fine. If you have a look at some research before 1750s, the year was celebrated on the 25th of March throughout Europe. It's not just a funky hippie thing. They've been celebrating it for yonks for many thousands of years around about the 25th of March. But then they've changed it to fit with the Catholic calendar, which had to do with barter, and also, I suppose, the harvest. So we, in a way, undid the lock. I don't get freaky on you. We undid it and we basically made it in Capricorn. Capricorn is one of the elder signs. It is the last phase, the last phase of the year, the last three signs. And unfortunately, we cannot really do that much here, only perfect what we were good at before. So there is a staleness to Capricorn as the beginning of anything, but never mind. Let's start again. Okay. So the year began in March. The year began in March, and now September, we have exactly 6 months that have passed. So now you see a very nice outlay as to what has been done, how you've been treated, what you have been good at all along, how you have perfected your life, what you have mastered, as we are, especially in the rabbit year, what you have wanted to do, how far did you take it, what was and wasn't growing, have you achieved success? And now this is the hardest time because sometimes, it's like wheat from grain, husk and grain, I mean, yeah, wheat from grain, husk and grain, and people have to really, really understand and develop themselves further. And unfortunately, why we have so much messes in life, why we have so much issue in the corporate system as well, because it cannot admit the past is the past. Should I say this connected to Christmas time and the celebration of the new year in January? Yes, of course. But also, no, it's the whole system of trust where we have been putting our trust and where we have been, blocking off also things and protecting ourselves from something. So what we don't and what we do understand is just all crazy. So Capricorn to Cancer, what we do and do not allow, what we do and do not forget, or what we do and do not remember is all skewy. So in a sense, to start over is very hard for a lot of people on the equinox point, as it is kind of a second turn. And in some cases, we just really have to forgive. A lot of it is just about throwing out what didn't work out. People really struggle with that. People don't like to look at their lives and see where there's husk and where there's grain and what needs to stick around and what will not. So, like, a whole part of the year here is just about remembrance, recognition, learning from the fine freaking details, recognizing and no longer having to do the work. no longer having to try so hard, no longer also having to be somebody's friend or partner, not participating, moving on. So the DC point of the chart is about endings. The AC is about beginnings. The AC point is where we had the first equinox this year in March, as we went from Pisces to Aries. A new cycle began. The DC point between Virgo and Libra is that, it's like we're done. So it's like the beginning and this is the ending. And this is really, really, really hard also, um, for me, I understand a lot of different people, also have been telling me, hey, why wouldn't you do this? Shouldn't you do this? Shouldn't you do that? I've been taking a lot of advice. Maybe you also kind of like me, kind of scattered and not sure as to where you really fit and how you should really maneuver this time. And things can also be kind of in pieces. If you imagine Virgo is a great mechanic, sometimes Virgo likes to pull things apart in order to slot things in. And then if we also didn't feel that real flush feeling during Aries or during Leo, the two fire signs, it is kind of a strange kind of addicted to details energy during Virgo, and it can pay attention to things that didn't really belong. So we got to kind of understand and grief and see ourselves and see what the world is and make it short. You have to make a choice. A lot of it is just about choice making. Much of what we have to do, had to do since March is already done. If you can imagine, there is a sweeping through from Aries till about Leo, and we really, really see that full spectrum of sunshine. If you live in the northern hemisphere, you would have always, probably experienced during this time quite a lot of sun. Even if you live in a colonial country, your ancestors are trained to expect sun during June, July, August. So that's very awesome. That's very lucky. So what I'm basically saying is that there's a swooping, like big sort of mission that happens between Aries and Leo. And then as we go on to this Sun and the DC, the point and what is appropriate and what has to be, and also what has been done and what hasn't yet been available or yet hasn't been fully done or fully finished is now seen. So let's not maybe think too much and try to get adjusted. What did you really want to do? How did you do? If you had a good result, what did you do? How did you put it together? And also, where did things just not make any sense? Sometimes the more you give, the less you get. And the more power, money, advertising, I don't know, thinking, feeling that you put into something, the less it answered you. Like the more time or money you spend here, the more it hurts, So we've got to basically start to believe in these very factual and reasonable cause and effects. We cannot any longer imagine it. It is just so. So that's the thing. It's like there is a very unimaginary energy to this time. We have Neptune almost on the AC in retrograde, opposing to the Sun. And also, I suppose, the Sun is at a trine to the Earth sign bound Pluto, Jupiter, Uranus conjunction as well. So we have a very, very deep phenomenalizing time. And let's make it quick. So let's make it quick because Mercury will be direct during this time as well. And it is like this. So what do you think? So what do you feel? So what do you gather from it all? It's a very, very quick energy. It's a very quick commitment, and in certain situations, it's a very quick and timely death. It's a quick and timely departure. We've just lost a person in our community recently, also. A couple of people actually in our community. So, like, what I'm trying to basically say is that things kind of go out of style, things become unavailable or no longer connected incredibly fast. And what we basically need to understand is that it's liberating for us to gather if something isn't, you know, It's a liberating feeling. So you have to stop holding on to the blanket and the bib and let it give you something else. Let it give you light. So for example, having no more friends in a certain place, not being given anything for a certain job or not being cared for, having a no show, especially if it's a really stark no show, like you started a page and you had absolutely nobody interested in the page. If somebody else is doing better than you, also recognize it. There are other people, and there's also like older generations, or people from completely different places that have already got it together where you don't have it together. So understanding I don't have it, I don't know how, is not actually a bad feeling. It's more important that we do this than we keep on imagining things that don't necessarily have to be here. So like if you look at clutter and junk and people having too many people around, people making too many promises, a lot of accumulation of weight as well on the body, and also certain principles that don't bring you anything. They don't bring you up. They don't help you. We have to basically bring ourselves together, and in some way we need to start to reform. In many ways we have to maybe stay together and talk amongst each other. And a lot of rabbit is about safety, and it's about regrouping, and it's about reordering and reorganizing things. In some cases that's not going to have to be, but in certain cases, not everybody needs this, but some people need to get strong. They need to get whole as a community. Maybe they need to spend some time together and say, the things that they've been feeling. And also if there is any kind of emergency coming up, and maybe if you have a feeling that there could be some kind of a crisis point or emergency point, especially ones that we cannot control that come from the government and other systems, it's very, very nice to regroup and to have an understanding between people. So like having an evacuation plan, having some kind of a joint business idea instead of doing it all by yourself, having friends and family help you out, having people that get you along to things, having people that motivate you. It's very important to have somebody else help you, maybe with your home or with your children, or with your money, So there is like a survival network that is very, very good to have during this time. And maybe not every single person thinks so, not everybody needs it, but in some ways you got to have people that have your back, as they say. And together you might solve a lot of problems. The point is not to make it necessarily about crisis or any kind of crisis point coming. It's not necessarily about like death or demise or any kind of despair. It's more just about knowing what to be, how to function as a family or as a team, what to put your common sense towards. So Virgo is about common sense to a degree. Libra is, of course, about the book, like understanding and things being very orderly and very, very straightforward. It's about laws and systems. People understanding a certain type of concept together and compromising on that concept. So like the whole follow through from this time is just about nice, steady networks, good thinking, good feeling, collaborative people, being friends, being friends with different groups of people, bringing people together and starting to work as a lump, as like a lump sum of people, as kind of like a big conglomerate. So you're not like working as just you. It's not just you and your friends or you and your children. It's like a certain type of entity, or kind of like a machine, I suppose, aspect that it would create itself into. So people looking at each other, seeing what each other does. Sometimes it's about getting inspiration. Plagiarism can also happen. That's correct. Sometimes it's just about maybe making money. Sometimes for some people it is about going hunting, which is equal to that. Going hunting, having a survival mode, kind of thinking pattern, maybe doing things around the home. Also like understanding not everybody right now is equal. So this is something really, really hard to be during this particular type of time. Not equal. So, for example, you don't work at the moment, you cannot hunt, or you cannot do this or that. But, for example, you can drive, or you can help somebody, or you can hold space. Maybe you can mind somebody's children. Maybe you can cut the hedges of someone's garden. Maybe you can make friends. So we don't necessarily all have to be measured by the same ruler, which is what Libra really doesn't like, especially during this time. We do have Mars in Libra as well. So it's not necessary to make friends just to make friends. It's kind of like to have a certain law, a certain system through which you conduct your energy. So for example, like for me, it is very, very also important to see there's not really a choice. Sometimes also with time, with traffic, energy traffic, by knowing certain people, being part of certain media, by having also certain afflictions, and certain negative or positive behavior, we sometimes get kind of ground into like one energy. So, like how does a manager become a manager? How does a computer guy become the computer guy? Like how does a priest become a priest? How does, I don't know, like a vagabond become that? And it's not necessarily about titles or labels, but you kind of have been, in a sense, sculpted by your timeline into a certain type of able functioning presence. So even if you're like, I don't want you thinking that I'm this, I'm actually that. But if you put people together into kind of like a tapestry of lives, if you put them together in this kind of like cellular structure, if you imagine, you would definitely see that certain people speak out at certain times and are quiet in others. There's certain people that will be the have to do person. Sometimes there's a more functionality based person. Sometimes there's a more of a cheerful, happy, or like raising a frequency person. It's not like the seven dwarfs, Snow White and the seven dwarfs, and you get all those funny names for each dwarf and personalities like drowsy and I don't know, like sleepy. I'm funny. Okay, so like how, yeah, people kind of get divided into stereotypes and archetypes. I'm not telling you to necessarily be a stereotype or archetype, but you can see like how does a person become good at their job? Like if you look at how people organically have moved before and how they've settled and made villages, and they were like craftspeople, and there were people like looking after animals, and then people that would prefer to build houses, or they would prefer to stay out of it, or they would prefer to be free. There's lots of different ways of living in the world, and I'm coming back to laws and rules and also friendships and this kind of intricacy as to how to live here and function, not just function, how to live amongst people. This is a really big question for me. And it's also, I think, a really, really big question for many of my listeners, because I've been spending a lot of time debunking society probably, and since 2020 I feel a lot of people have fallen in faith in terms of what reality really is and how society really works. And I've also been one of those people, so understanding how things are today is very easy based on the 2020 results. So like when we really have the heart and have the mind, we've got to restructure and we've got to regroup as a people, as a being, as a conglomerate, or as a country, or even just as a family, just as some kind of body, like a collective body of minds, collective body of energies, unless you really, really don't have to do that. And I certainly have also been one of those people. If you have made your life into something that is completely extraordinary to such a degree that you don't have to connect, mix, mingle, talk, or even see anybody for days, that's a very, very interesting mind. That's a very, very interesting energy. That takes time to understand. And of course, that has a lot of wonder in it. And probably some people, of course, that listen to my channel would probably know a lot about that. So it's kind of like being the vagabond. It's not about necessarily being the vagabond. It's about being unconnected or disconnected or distant from anything and everything. That's also a very well way to do it. It's just whether or not you're happy and whether or not you see yourself reflected. Unless you got a lot to do, you got a lot of concentration that can go towards, I don't know, the cityscape or the trees outside. I'm not quite sure as to how to really function within that meter, but I definitely do understand. And I did see this for a long time that many people have become highly functional and highly potent as being a lone person or being a person outside of any formation, social or familiar, which is a very, very good thing as well. It's also a telling of the coming times. And I think it's always been there and it has got to be there. People that have absolutely no um, culture or they have no trust in each other or they have no network, which is an okay thing, to do as well. So I suppose we have to experience a fall during this time, and I feel that we also have to experience a might. So if you can imagine, you're running on battery, and each project that you are taking time in, each involvement, also each item that you store in your home, it takes up a certain amount of battery. What you do every day, what you think about, what you watch on TV, who you're with, everything and anything that you are or have ever taken part in, sorry, has a certain storage, energetic or memory storage. So yeah, it's just about blueprinting your life differently, but you got to relax, you got to let go, and you got to be okay about parting with things. You got to be fine about saying no to things as well, and no longer being an actor in other people's lives and actually starting to be genuine. If you have different personalities, if you have different modes of function, if you cannot fully be yourself and you have a certain type of sense of irrelevance or impracticality about you during this time, you have to stay sincere and maybe you have to throw some things out. So it's very, very good. In the southern hemisphere, it could be time for a spring clean because it is actually springtime over there. Um, but maybe for most people, just about simplicity and getting to know how things actually work and what they really are. So to do this is hard. Finding the faith in yourself after you recognize there is like a lot of stuff you don't want to keep around. Like also understanding that half the things that you own are worthless or meaningless to you now, in terms of like cleaning your home. That's really, really hard. Also recognizing that a lot of your junk from the past, your backlog with your mother or your father, what happened, teachers at school, anything like that, that already, starts to gnaw. It starts to make you feel ashamed, or it starts to make you feel like you really haven't got it. So that's really, really easy now, maybe when you think about it, is just to put things out on the street, give them away to others, and to allow another person to benefit from your idea, or just to let something be a loss. Then to how to really celebrate this time is maybe with a fire. I feel there is no shame in burning certain items, or there is no shame of releasing past tension and past exercises or past involvements, because on a certain level people cannot fathom the faith or that full heart unless their battery is relatively well, it's not their batteries, their storage is relatively free. So you got to have a lot of storage, if you can imagine like life as being like storage on your device, to be able to hack the next frontier, because the next frontier is hard. There is a lot of scrupulous activity during this time. So I also have to prepare you. I'm writing this book at the moment for 2024, as I do every year. So it's going to be my book number 8, I think. Um, so you see, what I'm trying to prepare you for is we've got a dragon year, a wooden dragon year next year, and it is going to be about jobs and finances and success and histories and world class, grandeur. And there's also going to be a lot of ambition coming through, and people have to be very exact, they have to be very adult, they have to be very, very good. It is a time of the craftsman, as wooden years would usually suggest. There's a need for crafting, there is a need for real stories, there's a need for miracles as well in some people's lives. We have to be very, very, very passionate about things. We have to take them to the limit. So that's a very, very deep and undoubtful businessman's year, I would say, 2024. Why am I bringing it up now? I'm bringing it up now because after we cross into Libra, we have Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and then very, very fast in Aquarius, there's going to be officially Chinese Year celebration, but I wouldn't even say that this is how it works. It is just slowly going to start to get very official. So the years don't just like get cut into segments in terms of the Chinese year, in terms of the flavor of the year. So we don't just have rabbit year and then we have dragon year. It's not just that. It's like we have rabbit year and then it slowly starts to transform into dragon. So this already kind of started. In some cases, I'm seeing that there is a lot more neurological understanding of where one is going to be eventually later in time. There is a strategist coming out already, and me, for example, I know that for a lot of my friends, there is a need to be safe and need to be kind and clean and shy, as rabbit year is like about a restructuring of sorts, but it is also kind of about having that edge or having that destiny. So the year of destiny is almost upon us, 2024. I'm going to do, like, of course, a big series about this. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that this seriousness and this becoming and this purposefulness, this drive and this diligence and this harshness is already going to start from about Virgo time. So we already have that. It's like, I want to get a good result. Like, I want to get good marks at university, or I want to make sure that I make it on time, or I want to make sure that I get the best out of all of this. So in some sense, like, I'm not nervous about it today, but it was kind of a little bit weird the past few weeks recognizing what this is. It's about being kind of a miracle to yourself. It's about having full self-respect. It's about having a full life and living in like this, body in this 3D in absolute force. So that's already going to start to build and build and build and build. And then we come to Aquarius time and Pisces time, and then there's going to be this huge maybe uprising, or there's going to be huge societal reorganization, or there's going to be a big, big voice inside of you. So that's where we basically are going. So eventually from this DC point, this descendant point, this equinox, to the next equinox, March 2024, there's going to be this really big deepening and this very huge sincerity and this realness and this passion and authority and maybe even depression and meaninglessness and like avant-garde movements in art and desperation. There's going to be quite a lot of also security for some other people. So there is this kind of build up to this huge core. I mean, if I was honest, I would probably say that in all the 12 years of the zodiac, this is probably the one that makes or breaks. So as we build up to dragon, it's not just a willy-nilly, oh yeah, it's going to be another year. It's never another year. So the dragon year is a huge, ginormous mystery, and it has a very, very deep climatic start or ending, and the last one we had was 2012. So it's very, very, very also depressing. As depressing if you don't know who you are. As depressing if you just kind of like, wait, what happened to me? How am I? Wait, who am I? So like that gets me sometimes as well. So yeah, it starts to be very, very, very deep as to who we weren't and we tried to be as well, and why we aren't yet there enough in the heart to really admit our realness. So that real, 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 true, strong feeling at the moment during this equinox is kind of reflected between each other. Or it is reflected in nature if you're a real loner, or it is reflected within you. It's a real piece. We need to really start over, and maybe start over small. So for example, if you now have many friends, but they're just doing really tiny things, accept them. Admit that that's where also you might have been for a long time. So that's where we sometimes really falter, being around people and then calling them names. You know, so this is it. Like, you can't keep on calling your friends names or feel disgruntled about the way society works or who's living in your neighborhood or like, oh my God, how ugly or how crazy that person is. You have to sort of put it together, because if you have been put in a certain place by now, we still have some time till November to change places, you see. Still have some time. But if you've been put somewhere by now, in a rabbit here, you have to not necessarily be addicted to it, but like have a mind that constantly bounces between the environments. Rabbits are kind of like that. It's kind of a telepathic union, you know. So it's like, if I am in this brand, I'm in this brand. If I am in this home, I'm in this home. If I am in this career choice, I'm in this career choice. If I'm in this school, I'm in this school. I'm in it. We can't control it sometimes, because this is like a wave of people that is walking and is doing, or it's speaking its truths, you know. So it's all kind of evolved to probably some of the best potentials, because Libra is kind of a compressing energy that is going to calcify certain results and make them real. And yes, eventually we have the fixed sign of Scorpio that's going to make it absolutely or absolutely not. You know, so we have to be absolutely breathtaking and kind to ourselves and other people, and stay gentle, and in a sense stay similar to one another. And I know it kind of diminishes one's personality or one's personal charisma when you see yourself as just part of the show, but understand that now within all is just one. So like the fractaling that is happening at the moment is all just one. And we need to also let go. So letting go maybe is easier now when you like look at the bigger picture of what life is. And perhaps in a sense there is nothing but care left. If it's not caring, if it's not warm, if it's not like caring, if it's not like obviously loving, let it go. Even if it's big, even if it's wow. Yeah, so that's basically what this particular time is about to me. Thank you so much for listening to my interpretation. If you like, have a look at my Patreon page. If you want, you can have a look at the links below. You can get a reading. I have a special this month. Yeah, so you can get 3 questions for the price of 1 during September. Yes, it's kind of like a cleansing, it's a clearing for the equinox. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and I will see you next time. Bye.